Welcome, everybody, to Sam's and Aaron's Hangout. I'm Aaron Schwartz, one of the founders of Orita. This is a great podcast where we get to talk with Sam Moorhead about sales and building in today's environment. Orita, this is probably going to be the extent of what we say about us. We build AI segments for a ton of Klaviyo brands. So had the opportunity to spend time with Sam. I was going to say over the years, but I think literally 6 months. It's just been a great 6 months, man. I feel deep kinship. Sam, thank you for jumping on. Would love for you to give a proper introduction to yourself, a little bit about your background. Don't be shy.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And likewise on the kinship, it's been great to see you absolutely everywhere. I don't know if you're typically on this kind of a run, but I've probably been to more conferences, customer dinners, et cetera, than ever. But I'll give a quick background to myself. So I run our Klaviyo customer growth organization, which is very different than a net new selling a customer organization. What we focus on is really making sure that we are selling the right product to the right customer at the right time. We are a B2C CRM in the market that is, yes, focused on e-commerce primarily. And how did I get here? I can kind of go a little bit farther back.
I really want you to, because I want to dive in a little bit more on like what's changed and what you see coming. So please, I think you've got a super cool background.
Definitely. Yeah. Like many people that fell into sales, I didn't originally want to go straight into sales. I graduated in 2009, which was economic meltdown. I'd been a finance major. I'd been doing UBS wealth management internships, and there were no jobs. So I fell into a startup. That startup, we started using HubSpot, which worked really, really well and was a heck of a lot cooler than the product that I was selling. So went over to HubSpot as a business development rep and thought I'd be there for maybe 2 years, and then go to business school. But that product just worked. There were such smart people. I'd been at a tiny startup that felt like, there were so many mistakes that I saw right out of college that could have been done better. And then I joined HubSpot and I was like, whoa, this is business school. Like they are doing everything correctly. The communication, the marketing, the strategy, the kind of the sales focus of what great selling is in the future in the market. I learned a ton. I got to gain experience working in South America. I spent a couple of years over in Dublin selling to the UK and Ireland. And in a lot of ways, I feel like the international selling is sort of a check the box thing. But after 10 years, I felt like I was going to either be institutionalized at HubSpot and stay there forever. And I had to answer the question for myself, like, am I good or is HubSpot good? So I went to go take a VP of sales gig at a company called Copper. That is a PE-backed turnaround business, which was an amazing experience for me because I learned a ton, but it was the hardest job of my life. PE-backed turnaround reporting to the CEO is quite different than founder-led business that's been ripping for 10 years. We can go into that more later if you're interested. I went to a business called Vendor, which has, I think, a really interesting perspective on SaaS in general, which has helped me to form a lot of my point of view and, the why to join Klaviyo. And I've been at Klaviyo growing our customer growth organization over the past 2.5 years, absolutely loving it. And I'm hoping I'm here for the next 5 to 7 years as my last job before what's next.
Just to be very clear, this podcast, everybody from Klaviyo is watching it. So you may get promoted. You might lose a job coming out of this. So good luck.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Actually, let's jump in on the PE side of things. I knew Vendor well because I was at a company that was also in the craft portfolio when Vendor was really scaling quickly. But talk about Copper. So what is it that what was the difference between being at a company that's ripping versus a PE-backed company, right? Where you're turning it around and obviously focus on profitability on some level. And then I'm curious, like if you can bring that to what have you brought forward into your role at Klaviyo as well?
Definitely. Yeah. I think the things I took away from so many years at HubSpot were communication is so important from a leadership perspective. I think the business, what HubSpot did so well was sort of hide the challenges at the top around what problems are happening and made it so much easier for leaders to be able to build teams to support and grow people, and to be able to do the right blocking and tackling for execution to be able to get the work done. Being at a PE-backed turnaround company, and obviously, like, I think probably being a little bit over my skis for where I was in my career, reporting to the CEO there, the level of depth required from a metric standpoint was so different. And when you're talking about, are we going to do a discount for this particular customer or not? You're literally going to the CFO to be able to figure out if the business can support that type of a deal structure or not. And I think for me, what I learned there was not just communication, kind of like what it was at HubSpot, but on a week over week basis, we had such an intensity around what was happening every single week, communicated to all different parties, internally, across the business with every department there.
Would you try to protect the people beneath you or like other folks in the org? Or is it just like, hey, this is radically transparent. Everybody's going to know where we stand on a weekly basis?
We were much closer to the latter.
Hmm.
We actually had a company meeting, 100% of the business on a call every Friday, where we reviewed the financials that were really helping the entire company to know exactly where we stood. And I think that created significant accountability,
Hmm.
which is radical transparency or radical accountability. But it's a different environment than being a publicly traded, founder-led organization that's trying to grow really, really fast. Copper was a business that was struggling in a sea of a lot of CRMs out there.
If you think about HubSpot, that was doing well, but obviously there were like some things that weren't shared with everybody, right? I could imagine almost a 2x2 about like transparency versus like quiet and performing well versus, hey, hanging on for dear life. Do you think the transparency at a company that would be performing well is actually a good choice because it like creates clear mission alignment, clear radical accountability for for everybody, even the most junior person? Or do you think there's like some balance that's right?
Uh, I am an open book in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I think people who are high slope and that are looking to grow, they yearn for the transparency. HubSpot had transparency as one of the main core values of the business. Now, obviously, there are things that, especially once we became a public business, where it's like, okay, let's be as transparent as legally allowed, right?
Sure.
But I say from a leadership perspective, large or small, the more transparent that you can be, the more bought in you are going to get your team, your leaders, around the mission, around the why. You're going to get better engagement. You're going to have a better opportunity to be able to land the messaging that you want to land by simply being more transparent. Now, it doesn't mean you should be 100% transparent 100% of the time, because a lot of the time you're trying to hide some of the mess that's happening at the seat at the table, so that you can figure out the answer, or at least the direction of what strategy you're going to go before giving everybody all the strategies and confusing everybody. Because pure, constant, open book transparency is not helpful. Right? It's like,
It ignores the fact that there's a mess always to make the decision and that there might be multiple good decisions, but even the thrash of are we going to do A or B would be a disaster if everybody was part of every single piece of that.
exactly.
Okay. You are growing a team. Like, I know a decent amount about CG, at least from the outside and how you're doing it. I'm curious about you as a leader and obviously trying to abstract away for like other people who are in your type of position or who are growing their career in sales as well. What are the things that you took from the previous companies that you actually got wrong about? Maybe it's yourself as a leader or the quote unquote right way to build a team or to build an org. What are the things that maybe you also got really right?
Back to the transparency piece, I think I probably was too transparent at particular moments, which has probably over the years created some levels of thrash. I remember reading an article that like stuck with me where I'm like, am I doing this? The line that stuck with me was like, okay, you want to be transparent, but don't show them the crazy. Right? And if there's something that I've made mistakes around, it probably comes back to that and making sure that we are communicating the right information at the right time and being as transparent as possible at the right moment when you have more ducks aligned. And then the second part of that question was what? I got part one.
You're good. I ask like 3 questions at once normally, so good luck figuring this out. Like there are things that you assumed that were right for a leader, right? And so part of it was obviously the transparency side, where maybe you were going a little too far. I love the quote, "Don't show them the crazy," right? I will try to internalize that before my next meeting after this. What are the things that you just got right, or that you feel like if you're building a team right now, whether it's you got right or not, like what are the core pillars of building right now as you're kind of scaling this org?
Well, I'd say that you asked about the difference between a PE-backed startup and HubSpot and leadership and what's been done right. There are some things that are core fundamentals that are just plain there, but building a team, right, is I went through a training. I think this business is now defunct. It was a company called Intelligently that actually had really, really high slope early leaders that were involved in this. And they used the Tuckman model of team formation, which is basically, you're forming, getting started, right? And then you're storming because people are trying to figure out like, where are you actually at in the pecking order? We don't have appropriate expectations set, or maybe you set expectations, but they were the incorrect expectations. Don't have the right levels of collaboration that are set up appropriately for the team structure. And every team goes through this. There's always constant change. Right. And then the third piece of it, you're getting into norming and then you're getting into performing. And for every team, you go through this, and the best teams are able to get through forming, storming, norming, and then get to performing as fast as possible and stay at performing for as long a period of time as possible. But there's always that cycle that happens. And it's kind of one of the reasons, early in my management career, when somebody was telling me, you really want to be a manager of individual contributors for at least 5+ years before you start managing managers, because you've got to go through those cycles. You've got to understand the hiring profiles, and you've got to make your own mistakes for it to actually set in a way where you're going to not make those mistakes again.
You've gone through that process. You guys have a high functioning team, and at some point you're growing, right? And you're adding new people to the team or new responsibilities to some people. How do you get new people kind of caught up to speed to how the team is performing, right? Because you have that atomic unit that is doing a great job, but you're always trying to add new folks. What's your approach on that?
It's a really timely question right now. We just came out of a meeting that was specifically around this, because Klaviyo, we have not been on a huge hiring spree recently. We have been trying to do more with less, improve rep productivity as much as possible, just like most other businesses out there, to be able to drive as much value. Not, we're not reducing headcount, but we're not trying to just plain add more heads to add more heads. We're trying to make them as efficient as possible. And we've got a new cohort of 4 new account executives that are joining the team next month. And it's about being deliberate from an enablement perspective. It's about my POV on getting new people up to speed is that it's actually more important to have frequency of support over like big 3-hour meetings. Like we have at a big company like Klaviyo, we've got onboarding, we have enablement resources, we have an enormous amount of documentation and all the recorded trainings that you can go through and you can point people towards. But at the end of the day, you need somebody from a mentorship perspective, whether it's the manager and an assigned mentor, to make sure that every day they're getting at least it could be a 15-minute meeting at the end of the day to go through, all right, what did we learn? What did we take away? What are you confused about? What 15 questions do you have around all of the processes that we've built out over the past 16 years at Klaviyo that take time,
Hmm.
right?
I love this. Something I instituted maybe a year ago was when we would onboard somebody is I put a half hour at the end of the day, whatever time zone they were in, at the end of their day, every day for a couple weeks, which was an optional meeting at their discretion. But the idea being like, you could ask the same question 10 times. I don't have any expectation that you understand what we do, why we do it, who our customers are. And the frequency was the idea. Candidly, probably need to bring that back more for everybody. We as like the CS org is doing daily stand-ups where we're going in depth specifically around this. It's like no dumb question, whatever support you need. There's a big surface area. There's unlimited things to learn. We're always changing. So I very much appreciate the frequency side. Um, Sam, I want to go into some tactics a little bit,
Do
especially
it.
when you kind of mentioned enablement. There are two big threads I'm very curious about. One is how do you help people learn the product, and number two is we'll go into customer discovery. But why don't we start with product, especially for Klaviyo, which is like a broad surface area, and the product keeps expanding. Like, how does somebody get in there and really start to understand what they're selling, so they're not just parroting what you're saying, but really gain that depth of knowledge?
Yeah. Um, and when you say people, you mean account executives
Oh,
that are
hey,
selling,
let's
learning the product, or do
let's
you
call
mean our customers who are trying to learn the product because
Dude, it's a
it's
good
moving
question.
so fast that
Let's start with AEs, right? But
yeah.
literally the space of the how do you go do customer discovery is also part of that as well. So let's start with AEs. I'm new. I'm onboarding right now. I'm going to go through some big training. But then what? Like, how do I get this ongoing? How do I keep up to date with everything that Klaviyo is doing?
So starting with the former, I think Klaviyo, uh, even 5 years ago, uh, the sales process was much, much more highly technical. Customer knows exactly what they want to do, and they're going to come to a sales conversation and say, "Can you do this or not? Can you integrate to this or not?" As we've built out the B2C CRM suite, we have far more use cases. We have far more products. There's far more potential outcomes of what you could actually drive. So it's a much broader landscape. And platform selling is, it has to be from a value and an outcome perspective, right? What I mean there is that you need to more deeply understand what is the specific problem, the specific metric that one of your customers is trying to move, and then work backwards from that from a product standpoint to align, well, which piece of which part of which product across the platform is best aligned to that deeply specific problem each customer is trying to solve, right? And I think we've gotten so much better at this as a business. Cody Norman, he's the one that's leading up our enablement, and he has got a lot of just playing the core depth of sales fundamentals from a value selling framework and from a med pick perspective to be able to make sure that we are not just talking about any specific random feature, but we are deeply understanding what the customer is trying to accomplish and then aligning the correct products, not just from a feature perspective, but from a use case standpoint, right? It's what are you going to do with that at the end of the day?
Are there, in terms of doing discovery, and if it's useful, dive into AI tooling if you want to. If not, please don't. But what is the right way for somebody to walk into a call, like a new salesperson? Sam signs up for Orita. I'm jumping in. What are the questions I want to be asking? How efficiently do I do it? Am I coming prepared with certain things that I wasn't prepared with before because of AI is enabling me to do it? How do you
Yeah.
dive into that discovery to go figure out what the real job to be done is, what the real value is?
Well, I think we can't not answer anything with AI right now. um, but in order to enter a conversation today, and this is probably one of the places that things have actually started to drive the most incremental improvement from an AI standpoint in the sales world, is you need to enter each conversation with some level of a point of view, or you are basically showing up and telling that customer, telling that prospect that you're ready to waste their time. You have to show up, and it's not showing up and saying, "Hey, I know exactly what is going on with your business." but the reason that you reached out is specific to not just, hey, I saw you guys got funding, so you might actually want to buy something, but you can very quickly listen to the podcast that a CEO has recorded 2 weeks ago, especially in e-commerce. Like we are in a space where the people that we are trying to talk to, they're talking to the market constantly. They're constantly launching new products. They're selling to consumers. So most of the leaders, they're pretty easy to try to gain a perspective and a point of view on what they are actually working on. So saying, hey, I heard that you said the number one focus for this year is improving seamless customer experience and delivering better user generated content machine across, the e-commerce product launches. Like that's a point of view that you can start a conversation with, as opposed to saying, "Hi, Aaron, you run Orita. You're CEO. What are your top priorities?" Right? That's a very uninformed opening to a discovery that's probably going to make your customer feel like you don't care enough about them to do the research that is out there to provide the most possible value for that customer or prospect.
Are there, so you do that, we have a good start to the conversation. You're aware of the things that are my priorities. I redirect a little bit. I go, kind of, but here's this other thing. Are there a couple of very clear discovery questions that you teach your team to use? Like I want to pull out some tactics. I want all of your secret sauce, but like, you're talking to other people who are trying to get better at sales. Like what are some of the better questions that you would have your team ask?
I mean, my favorite question in the world is why now, right? And it's
Mm,
not just asking why now without your preamble.
sure.
What I just described before in point of view is that a better question is typically teed up with some of the why you are asking that question, right? So uh, a better why now question than just plain why now would be, hey, I've been reviewing your account. You've had 14 conversations with us over the
Mm,
past 7 years. I I know you're saying that you're interested in our product right now, but historically, right, it seems like you've had a lot of conversations and interest,
mm.
but you never actually wanted to try out our product. Why now? What's different? Right? That preamble with the right power kind of framed question is so much more effective than showing up and saying, you know what, I asked about their top priorities, but I didn't get anything back. Because you're not having a conversation. You're going through a checklist of 15 questions.
That I think asking it in a genuine way and like really and truly diving in is the hard part. Once you have the product mastery, then you can go in and like continue the conversation. Um, I think one
Yeah,
other,
I think that like that's probably the biggest tactical point. It's like you can't describe whether through AI or through the training that your sales coach is delivering. These are the 7 questions that are going to create a great discovery call. Is at the end of the day, it's how are you having a great conversation? Is there a good back and forth? You're not going to be able to truly challenge a customer's point of view
Mm.
if you aren't able to get to some level of trusted advisor status where they know that you know what you're talking about. So you've got to meet the customer with where they're at. Right? If you start a conversation with somebody who's a director of retention versus a CEO, you have to use very different language because they're living a very different world in what they're doing from a work perspective.
yeah. It's interesting. I right before this, I rolled off a customer call and a company that I like deeply respect is, won't go into it, is going under. Um, and so they build a really cool flows product. And so this customer came to us, hey, can you guys do some work with flows? And we're building this, but we're building it in beta. And it was very hard for me just to have the conversation around this product where we're doing proper discovery. And so what I did is I was like, look, I'm going to take 8 minutes. I'm going to tell you everything we do, and I'm going to stop because you need to know who we are and then do more discovery. And I found even that, like, I was taking away from the opportunity to learn from this customer but there was limited time. And I imagine like for your sellers, especially where you have, cool, I hear you and that's important. But by the way, did you know we're B2C CRM? And oh, did you know we can also do SMS? And by the way, we have this very cool marketing analytics tool. How do you coach your team on that balance where it's like, guys, be curious, be hungry, figure this out. Sure, take discovery for an entire call and then get them onto the next call versus like at some point they also need to be closing a deal or like getting that, maybe the first contract in. Like where I don't even know how to like, I know this is so much it depends, but like how do you find that balance and how do you coach your team on how to recognize that balance?
I mean, it's back to another big sales fundamental, which is, is there an appropriate level of give and get,
Mm,
right? With each element of value that you provide, you earn the right to ask for something more. And like if you are in a sales role, you need to make it clear to your customer that this is a sales process. But you also need to make it clear that it is okay to say this is not a good fit, because sellers, they are not in the business of trying to sell every single customer every single product. They are in the business of trying to most efficiently have the right conversation, sell the right product to the right customer at the right time.
mm,
Sometimes that's a suite full of a number of different products, but they need to learn what that customer needs and
mm,
then effectively write the prescription like a doctor writes for, hey, these are the specific problems that you've got. You don't need this, but you do need this.
mm,
And once you become a very elite seller, that's what it sounds like. Earlier on, it's definitely hard, but I think you pick up really more and more of it, the more customer conversations that you have, the more intellectually curious you are as just a
mm.
seller in general. Like if I'm a new AE getting started in a new market, I'm going to start listening to all the podcasts in that market and be like, if I don't have the stories myself, let me take some other people's stories, because storytelling at the end of the day is probably the most impactful thing that you can do if you can tell the right story about another customer that has actually
Mhm.
driven success that sounds exactly like the customer that you are talking to.
It's a really good point. Um, yeah, the story side, the customers like you tend to is very helpful. It doesn't have to be your own lived experience. You have to make sure that you understand it inside and out, right? Whether it's a case study that you're walking through, or to your point, learning from just the ecosystem. Um, I am curious right now because we definitely see it where we get messages, hey, why can't Claude do this? And whether they say it or not, I know it's implicit. We actually had a customer email us her response from Claude about why Claude cannot do what Orita does. And it's a big data problem. And it's just like, we have proprietary data that's not public, yada, yada, yada. You have this huge suite. I have zero doubt that people are saying, hey, can't we just do this ourselves? How do you help them understand what are the things that they can do themselves or what are the things where it's actually worth having a world-class tool? And like, yeah, even if you could get 80/20, like the 20 is actually where the value is.
Yeah, I mean, it is. So I'm an optimist, and I am an AI evangelist.
Mm,
And I flipped over the past year from using AI probably 20% of the time to pretty close to 80% of the time. I'm seeing significant incremental improvement myself. I'm seeing uh, really amazing examples of incrementalism from our customers that are leveraging AI in the right ways. So we can go, we might need another hour to start talking about all of those examples. But the notion that you can just slap AI at it without having to work really hard at it and probably have a number of other solutions that are the trusted source of truth, like the Klaviyo. I think uh, our biggest value prop as a product is the fact that we made a decision early on to be a database before we actually built an email product. And we made a couple of big bets as a business. We made the bet to keep our customers' data forever. We, of course, made that database before additional products bet, right? Uh, and we've made the decision to be a very open protocol platform. Right? We actually launched our MCP server last August, and so for uh, 2 weeks ago, just came out with some very serious improvements on the Anthropic front for all the Claude users out there. But we need to, as a sales organization, deliver the right prompts to Claude for what is possible with today 4.7 Opus, which is a heck of a lot better improved from 4.6. But there's still things that you're going to stub your toes on. And so we need to lead from the front by understanding what is possible with our platform, with these solutions, standalone, and where there's that kind of intersection of you're getting the most value by using both together.
One of the things, harkening back to the beginning of our conversation that you mentioned, was around depth of metrics, right? Which came with the Copper experience. I imagine now for your team, you can have even more junior sellers who are able to get a metrics understanding in a way that they never could have or be able to present. Is that fair? Or is that just like kind of part and parcel of being a seller these days?
Absolutely. I mean, like if you're an early stage seller right now, I used to call these next gen metrics, but you can track anything specific to what you are trying to improve. With granola, Gong recordings, you can track much closer to reality than just what's happening inside of CRM. And so if you are not consistently trying to figure out how to be able to move the metrics across all the areas of what you are doing to be able to build pipeline and close deals, you're just missing out on a big opportunity. But I'd say yes, like we have gotten in even the past year so much tighter in aligning forecast versus the individual kind of back the baseball card rep metrics to be able to help sellers to reverse engineer back exactly what they need to do, because it's not going to be the same playbook for every single salesperson, right? If you have some sellers that are just activity monsters, but do not have a close rate as a top seller, then how can they lean into their strengths? But how can they go and move the metric that they need to move? And that's where coaching plus data comes into play in sales leadership.
How much of the data that they're bringing is their own personal scorecard, right? Versus it actually finds its way into your CRM as well. And it's like you guys have a broader view of it.
I'm not sure I have like the perfect answer to that. I probably should be able to better answer it. But we're providing all the dashboards, all the kind of like AI insights there. But for me as a sales leader, I see Gong as the place that is closest to reality, and I'm spending the most time there to try to answer the questions around pipe generation, moving metrics in the market, what's actually happening in the market, and then on an individualized basis, if you're a manager going into a coaching conversation with an account executive, it's so much more powerful for you to be able to plug the last 10 calls in and say, okay, what are the 3 trends of what this seller has been doing really well or doing poorly over the course of these 10 calls?
And is it more effective because Gong has like here's what a great sales call looks like? So you've actually trained it when you talk about the trends, or is it more truly like seller by seller?
I mean, it's both. Like we've inside of Gong, we've got our own customer briefs that have been built out. I'm personally using Claude in my chief of staff that I've built. That's a revenue operating system that has what Klaviyo calls the book of pain, which describes for each different persona the specific pain points that would be mapped to specific specific solutions that we sell. That when you plug that in, connect it with context around that to be able to coach to MedPick with Book of Pain, it delivers a much more powerful framework for this is where somebody can actually improve based upon the sales process of one organization.
So it'll help you kind of zoom in, and then there's still the qualitative coaching side of things. Are there any input metrics that you can now see? Before it used to be activity, right? And I distinctly remember there was a BDR at Loop who was crushing it on pipeline. And then if you actually looked at the input, this VDR had sent 4 or 5 times as many emails as anybody else, which you could say is good, or you could say, holy mackerel, they're burning a ton of accounts, right? To like quote unquote outperform. Are there input metrics that you can see now or questions you're able to get answers to that you never could before?
I mean, again, back to, I feel like I'm pitching Gong right now, but
Right.
the North Star metric of what we are focused on at the top of the funnel,
Mm,
and we're a customer selling organization, so it's easier for us to be able to get the conversation.
mm,
Uh, but we prioritize our accounts. We have A, B, C, D accounts,
mm,
and it's conversations that you had with a customer that's an A or a B prioritized account. The goal is to get to 20 of those conversations on a month over month basis. And all the sellers that are doing that, they're able to get to their numbers. I think customer facing conversations in the right way and making sure that you're having the right conversations with the right
mm,
customers and the right people within that organization is huge. We still haven't unlocked how to use metrics around our penetration at the executive level, which is actually so, so, so important and something I've been talking about a lot recently. But if you think about and this is for any sellers listening, and this is, yes, we sell the e-commerce, but I'm seeing it everywhere. There's the biggest gap in history between what the CEO is thinking between them and Frontlines who's actually doing the work. And that wedge, it's AI. The reason being, things are moving so fast uh, that a CEO, they need to be thinking about what does next year, 2 years, 3 years, what's 5 years from now look like? And their head is there. And a lot of CEOs of businesses they're actually better experts in Claude and staying more up to date on that because they need to be able to predict what is going to happen with 4.8, 4.9, 5.5 next year, the following year. And then on the front lines, prior to Claude 4.7 Opus, you probably had 80% accuracy. And for things where you really need very close to 100% accuracy, you can't simply rely on AI. But we've we've gotten to 94%, sometimes 98% accuracy. Like, especially if you're selling Martech, that's pretty darn good,
not bad.
right? So, uh, eh, the the marketers on the front line that I'm seeing are leaning in and are actually learning this and they're getting promoted, and it's a real challenge for the people who are not pro AI,
Right.
because whether it's already happening or it's going to be 2 months from now, the CEO of your business is going to pick up on this and start plotting you or chat GPTing you around like, wait, hold on, I'm more of an expert in this than you are. This could just do your job, and they're going to be more and more
Yeah.
frustrated around why is my team not leaning in to learn this. So I think as a seller, you need to understand that
Mm,
gap. For marketers and CEOs out there, like it's about enabling and making sure that you're providing the training and the resources and the honestly, like some of it's time to play with it. Because last year for Klaviyo, AB, our CEO, he put out a very strong message and has been very consistently kind of beating the drum around how we are AI first. It's part of our hiring process. You have to be an AI, you know, more than just an adopter, but you have to be somebody that's more advanced from an AI perspective before we're going to hire individuals. And we're putting, we put dollars and funds into allowing anybody across the business to spend their own money and then get reimbursed for AI tools that they're trying out there. And last year it felt a lot more like playing,
mm,
right? And this year it's a lot more like, whoa, we are building internal solutions that
mm.
just work.
It's cool. I mean, we get to see a lot as a partner, the velocity. Obviously, your product org is shipping quickly, but even just like our interactions with Dan on the partner side, everything is just, it was already good. It's just getting better and faster and stronger, which is very cool to see. One tactical question, because you kind of mentioned the gap between the C suite, maybe and the frontline person. When should your sellers pull you in? Like, when do you want to actually pull in a manager, director, whatever it is, right? To go multi-thread versus when is it like, hey, do the work first? Is there any like general rules of thumb or tactics that you bring?
Um, I mean, the easiest way to answer that is like, hey, what's the size of the deal and like how much does that matter? But
Mhm,
that's not the only thing that you should be using as your litmus test for whether to
mhm,
get pulled in. Sometimes it's really helpful if you've got an early AE that needs to see exactly how a conversation should happen and that they need to be emotionally invested in their first deal that's going to be won to understand why it's important to get to the executive level, right? I think because of this wedge between individuals on the front line and CEOs out there and the gap today, it's harder than ever sometimes to be able to get your who you think is a champion as part of your customer base or your prospect that you're trying to talk to get you to the C level. Very, very challenging. Sometimes just bringing myself in can provide more immediate opportunity to be able to do that. And for us, we use I'm an evangelist of another tool. It's called CTD.ai that you're on. Very much appreciated, Aaron, but it helps you to be able to see the network connection paths. And for most C levels, you either need a champion internally that has influence, that is willing to bring you in front of their C level, or you got to find somebody who knows somebody to be able to get in front of them, right? And there's a menu of dozens and dozens of different strategies for how to be able to gain executive
mhm.
access. But using your leadership in one level, two level, three levels, four levels, that's part of your toolkit as an account executive when you're quarterbacking any deal cycle.
Cool. Thanks. One more tactical question. You have great salespeople. They're super curious. They're talking to customers. Any advice for a salesperson who's trying to communicate with product, or for sales leaders trying to communicate with product, which is like, hey, I've got these data points. Like, this is some extra feature or core product or core problem to solve. Like, I don't know what the feature is, but I know what the problem is that I'm hearing from my customers. How do great salespeople people or great sales leaders bring insights to product?
So I think it's actually really hard at the individual contributor level because uh, when you look at an organization, it's much easier to say, okay, have we heard 17 customers ask for this one specific thing? But if you're an account executive and you hear two customers talk about one particular pain point, something that you can't solve today, but probably could build, right? Float that up immediately. Make sure that your solutions engineer is involved in part of that communication and collaboration back to the product team. And I think it's a give and take with product. We need to make sure that we are not just asking for anything and everything. Right? We need to show up as a leadership team to product to say, I can deliver for you 5 million extra dollars if you
Mm,
can build this for me by XYZ particular time frame. But account executives on the front line, they're hearing about dozens of different problems. I'd say elevate them as much as possible. But if you hear it twice, it's probably a trend that's happening far more than just your conversations with your customers, and it should be more heavily escalated.
Great advice. At Loop, we used to have something we call the voice of customer meeting, where we bring the CS org plus the sales org and kind of mash up all the like, man, we really wish this product existed or this is a problem. And the piece that finally got stuff over the edge was actually having the column of here are all the accounts, right? And like, what are the dollars associated to it? And I mean, I think that's right if you're going to reprioritize at some point. Sam, we're going to wrap up. Thank you. I want to give a little space. If there's anything else you wanted to share or any insights that we didn't get into, space for that. And then also, where can folks find you?
Yeah. Um, I'm easily found. I'm on LinkedIn.
A great
I
place, people. If you don't know about it, you should check it out.
exactly. And then I think is to close it out, like on the Klaviyo side, we are so fired up about AI, the path forward, where we are going, the ethos of who we have been and who we always are is the marketer's platform. I talked about the gap between C-level and marketers, but we are building more and more to make it easy for you to be able to leverage the incredible possibilities of AI. So our composer it's one of the products that I'm probably most fired up about right now, where I'm seeing, I know if any customers are listening, then they're probably going to be asking to get into the beta, because this beta, it's already driven so much more incremental improvement. And I think the way we're looking at the future of this is it's about compressing your time, right? And making sure that you are able to do more with less. And for so many marketers today, it- like you're experts in segments. How many customers do not leverage segments enough? And then they come out with a product launch and they say, well, you know what? We actually didn't get the copy for the product launch in time to be able to do all these segments, to be able to slightly tweak it for those particular segments. But there's no excuse. In Klaviyo, we're building products to make it, not just no excuse, but really easy to be able to support that. I love how many customers are on Orita right now, and the value that they're getting by combining newest LLM plus Klaviyo source of truth for the customer record, plus all of the data of what you have from incremental improvement there. And I think what we're building is just plain making that easier and easier for customers to have the time that isn't there when you've only got 2 days before the content needs to go out for your large product launches.
Sam, thanks. Thanks for the insights. I've got a couple pages of notes. And thanks always for your partnership. Very much appreciate.
Definitely. Love it. Hopefully we didn't bore whatever crowd we've got out there.
Said it was great. She sent one thumbs up emoji. It's good. We got this.
Fantastic.
All right,
Love it.
man. We hit the dream.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah.
Cheers. Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Run Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.